Hello and welcome back to the Pallet Plug Podcast. If you're watching this, you can see that I've gotten a haircut at this point. I decided that it was time to let a little bit of my past go, so I decided to trim it up a bit. Today we have an exciting show. We have Michael Schmitt here from Air Burner. This interesting piece of technology. I see it as an incinerator, but Michael's going to tell me why I'm wrong in my guess as to what that is. How it's related to the pallet industry, how it could be beneficial for a pallet company to purchase one of these, or even just have a conversation with Michael to learn about it. I do want to give a thank you to Marty Gonzalez for setting us up and kind of connecting us and presenting this opportunity. So, Michael, would you mind giving us a little introduction, who you are, what you do, and then we can go into what Air Burner is.
Sure, Kyle. No problem there. Haircut looks great, by the way. So Air Burners. My name is Mike Schmitt. I'm the director of sales here for Air Burners. Been with the company for about 8 years now. Air Burners, we've been manufacturing above ground air curtain burners for the past 25 years. So we're based out of Palm City, Florida, where we manufacture the machines. We have about 100,000 square foot in our manufacturing plant where we're building, welding, painting, installing, running, testing the fireboxes, and then we ship the machines all over the world. So one of the better parts here in Florida is that we are right next to the ports. So
Nice.
what's interesting enough is that I can ship a machine to Taiwan
Wow.
less expensive than I can ship a machine to California.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we load them up in a Connex container, and the truck will come out in the back of our factory and go right to a ship, and it'll ship overseas. So thousands of machines all over the world.
Wow. And that's something just to kind of cut you off real quick. I didn't know like it was global. I was kind of thinking small minded. So it's pretty awesome that they're all over the place.
Yes. So I picked up, I have 2 Taiwanese reps. We have reps in South America, reps in Australia,
Wow.
reps in Canada. We have, of course, have reps here inside at Air Burners. So
Mm-hmm.
we do most of our sales calls that we're dealing with, emails, people calling in, are from North America.
Cool. Okay. So let's
Yes.
get into it. What is this not incinerator?
Yes, not incinerator. So that's it's interesting. So EPA is making that change right now. So
Okay.
they were saying, "Oops, sorry, we called them incinerators," when EPA here in the United States tested our machines about 15 years ago, and those tests lasted for about 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
And with those tests, they called them air curtain incinerators, and that's where that incinerator name came from, that's what the government wanted to call it. The problem is an incinerator is a specific type of machine, and an incinerator is going to be an enclosed top. It's going to
Mm.
have burners, some sort of supplemental fuel. So it's going to have a gas, and then it'll incinerate anything inside of the machine. Now it is very similar to our machine. However, our machine we labeled what we like to be called an air curtain burner.
Okay.
So the air curtain burner is very similar. However, there is no supplemental fuel that is utilized with our machine. The waste, the wood waste, the clean wood waste that is put into the air curtain burner, that is the fuel. So the wood
Okay.
waste is actually the fuel that powers the machine. And when I say power the machine is designed as an air pollution control device. So it's designed to burn with little to no smoke.
Okay.
So with that, we have been labeled the BACT, the best available control technology. So currently, California is our busiest state with our fireboxes. It used to be Texas, and now California and the West Coast have taken over with a lot of the cleanup from the forest fire or preventing forest fire with wildfire mitigation. And the reason that they utilize our machine, or the government is pushing our machine in many states, is because it's the BACT. BACT basically means that you are going to be the least expensive way and environmentally the cleanest way. So when you look
Okay.
at the SOx, the NOx, the PM 2.5, VOCs, so compared to grinding and hauling, compared to composting, and of course compared to open burning, our machines environmentally are the cleanest way to provide an end solution for that wood. And
Gotcha.
it's designed for clean wood waste. So you can only burn trees, stumps, branches, 2x4s, pallets, but you can't burn wood waste that has chemicals in it.
Okay.
So like pressure treated wood
Okay.
waste,
Gotcha.
or wood waste that has glue.
Like painted. What about like a painted
Painted
pallet?
wood waste too cannot burn that as well.
Okay.
So it's been when EPA tested our machines and they called them the air curtain incinerator, it was clean wood waste that you're allowed to burn inside of the firebox. But the incinerator issue is that once you call it an incinerator, every state has permits for an incinerator. So then we
Interesting.
go, hey, here's an air curtain incinerator. Let's permit this machine. And then they give us an incinerator permit, and our machine is not an incinerator and does not have any of the qualities that an actual incinerator would have. So our machine's built a little bit differently. The way that our machine is built is it has a diesel engine or
Okay.
an electric motor, and that diesel engine or electric motor powers a fan. And so that fan, what it does, it blows air through the manifold on one top of the firebox. And that manifold, it acts like a lid on top of the firebox.
Hmm.
So like an incinerator, it has a lid, and that's kind of where I think it was derived from.
Mm-hmm.
But you start the fire inside of the firebox like a normal campfire.
Okay.
So let's say you have your pallets, you would load your pallets in. This would be a cold start because you're talking about day one when the firebox arrives. The firebox arrives turnkey. So you start the fire inside of the firebox. There's ignition holes in the side of the firebox, so you can use a weed torch, and you
Okay.
put the weed torch in on the side of the firebox. The pallets will catch fire. Once the pallets are caught, they are caught and enclosed inside of our box. So if you were thinking about or trying to understand what a firebox looks like, we have fireboxes that range anywhere from 12 feet to 30 feet in length.
Wow. Okay.
So range anywhere from 1 ton an hour up to 13 tons an hour is
Wow.
what you're going to be burning on a daily basis. And so the firebox, if you have, let's say, the 20-foot firebox, you're going to have a 6-foot wide wall and then about a 7-foot tall wall and then
Okay.
a 20-foot long firebox.
Gotcha.
Our largest firebox, the 330 firebox, you're 8.5 feet wide, about 8.5 feet tall, and about 30 feet long.
Wow.
So
It's a
the
big.
firebox is different sizes.
Yeah.
But so you load the firebox, start the fire up. Once the fire started, then you turn on the air curtain. And what the air curtain is going to do is it's going to stall out the smoke for a quick second. Once the smoke rises, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to hit that air curtain. The smoke is going to be pushed down into the middle of the firebox, which is what we call the secondary burn chamber. And inside of this secondary burn chamber, the smoke is going to burn up in fractions of a second, causing them to burn down so small in small little particles where just the heat waves come out of the firebox.
Wow.
And the whole purpose of that secondary burn chamber is to oxygenate the fire to burn as fast as possible.
Okay.
So if you were to compare our machine to open burning, you can open burn a stump, and that could take a few days to burn.
Right.
Out of our firebox, it'll burn up in just a few hours.
Wow. So
Yeah,
the idea is, go ahead. Are you? Oh, I'll let you.
so that's generically how the firebox works. It's a continuously load, so
Okay.
you're constantly loading it all day long. And it's like, so the S327, that'll burn, I think it's somewhere around 300 pallets an hour.
Wow. Okay. And now these have to be broken down, or can you just throw whole pallets in there?
Exactly, whole
Okay.
pallets. So just as long as the firebox is large enough for the pallet itself. Now with pallets, you get a lot of geometric stacking. So this is one of the things I always tell our customers on the phone. They say, okay, well, I only need to burn 3 tons an hour, so I'm going to buy a smaller 116 firebox.
Okay.
Well, the 116 firebox, you're looking at, the walls in the 116 are 5 feet wide, 6 feet tall.
Okay.
So 5 feet wide, 6 feet tall, and you start getting geometric stacking in the box, and now you're only putting 2 or 3 pallets in the box at a time because of the geometric stacking. So you always want to buy one size up larger of a machine compared to what you're looking at with the pallets because of geometric stacking and because of the flames. So
Okay.
pallets burn pretty hot.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flames themselves, you want to keep the firebox about 75% full when running the firebox.
Okay.
So
So
you see
I
pallet
want to
companies
cut
are purchasing a 200 series firebox or
you.
a
Okay.
300 series firebox.
So I'm curious, what about like the nails? Like, does that become a concern? Like, how does that kind of play into that? Is it because it
Great
gets? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Great question. Great question. Yeah. So, with burning the standard wood waste, the stumps, the trees, the logs, the branches, things of that nature, it leaves a lot of ash. A lot of ash. 3% of ash,
Okay.
right? But a lot of ash compared to burning pallets. So pallets are almost burn up 99 to 100%. So I'll
Wow.
never forget. About 6 years ago, I was calling a client. He purchased a firebox, and I was following up about 2 months, 3 months after he had his firebox, making sure everything's running good.
Hmm.
And he was telling me we manufacture something called an ash rake, right? So if you have a 20-foot firebox, you have a 20-foot ash rake. If you have a 30-foot firebox, you'll have a 30-foot ash rake.
Okay.
And so he was using his ash rake for the first time. And I said, "Oh, that's great." He's like, "Yeah, we're going to pull all the nails out of the firebox. It's our first time using the ash rake." And this is after 3 months of owning the firebox.
Wow.
And in the beginning, we say, okay, you should break out the ash every morning. But this was at the point where I started finding out that with pallets, they almost burn up complete and you're
I
only
see.
left with the nails. So after about 3 months of burning, he had to take
Gotcha.
the nails out of the firebox, pull them out, and then you take them to a recycling site. You recycle all the metal.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. So dropping the nails inside of the firebox or metal inside of the firebox is not a problem. It doesn't burn hot enough to where it's going to melt the nails. It will
Gotcha.
soften the nails and almost congeal in the bottom of the firebox.
Interesting.
But yeah, so they will be there, and you'll want to collect them about every few months to pull them out and recycle the nails.
Not, and so they're kind of like the outlier. Like you were saying, normally you tell them every day, every morning, you were saying that they should be raking the ash out of that, but with pallets, it's different. So it's interesting that they burn that intensely, leaving that little ash, and then also the metal itself. Just it sounds like easier than like normal burning. It sounds like.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, here when I first started 8 years ago,
Hmm.
we were selling a lot to land clearing companies, municipalities, transfer stations, anybody collecting wood waste, pulling wood waste back to one site, and then those companies' facilities were looking at the least expensive way to remove their wood waste, and that's our machine. Your operational costs are less than $1 per ton, and that statement right there, that is really why people purchase our machines. It's great that environmentally it's going to be the cleanest way to provide an end solution compared to grinding and hauling, compared to composting, and of course, compared to open burning.
Hmm.
But the reason that everybody purchases our machines is because it's the least expensive way to provide an end solution for that wood. And so the municipalities, land clearing companies, that's another large percentage of our machines that are sold to, but they're all knocking down trees. And while that tree is green, they're taking it, knocking down the tree and throwing it right into the firebox. So they're not waiting for it to dry out.
Wow.
And so that was most of the industry that I started dealing with in the first few years. And with that type of material, there's a lot of dirt that gets thrown in, and
Mm.
a lot of ash that's created from that type of material because I guess it's greener material. Pallets are more dried out,
Right.
so they burn up more complete. But when the pallet industry started taking off for us here at Airburners was back in 2018.
Okay.
And the reason for that was China sword, right? So I'm not sure if you've heard of China sword
Nope.
before.
What's no?
So I know the China sword. Basically, we here in the United States we were getting rid of all of our chips. So in our wood waste to China, China was buying it. When the
Interesting.
China sword came out in 2018, we no longer could export, and China could no longer purchase the chips.
Interesting.
Therefore, what do we do with the chips? What do we do with the wood?
Yeah.
So it started becoming a bottleneck. And at that point, you couldn't get rid of chips anymore. And the pallet companies, they're manufacturing pallets, but they have broken pallets and they have customers that they deliver new pallets to, and then they take back all the broken pallets. So all this
Yeah.
unwanted, unusable wood waste starts piling up. And so if you can make chips and sell chips, it's great. You want to sell the chips.
Yeah.
Our machines are for customers that can't sell the chips. And what happens is if there are three people out there, in the pallet industry and they're making chips and selling chips. Well, the other three people that are out there, they can't sell their chips because these three are covering the market.
I
So
see.
our machines are for those facilities that the wood waste is piling up. They can't sell the chips. Rather than hauling it off in a truck and creating all those
Hmm.
emissions and going to a landfill, where the wood waste will sit inside of the landfill, create more methane, create more horrible emissions. Our machine, you're able to on site get rid of the wood waste that you don't need or don't want.
So that kind of brings me to one of the questions that I had was like, what makes this an eco-friendly solution? Because somebody might say like, well, I'm using the diesel engine and like this is still burning. Isn't that still putting particles into the air? Like, so what would you say in response to that?
Yes. So great question. So when it comes down to the emissions for the machine, yes, a diesel engine, you have a little 49 horsepower diesel engine.
Okay.
We use a tier 4 final engine that'll burn about 1 gallon of diesel an hour, right? So
Okay.
very small emissions compared to a grinder that's going to burn 60 gallons of diesel an hour or 150 gallons of diesel an hour, right? So
Yeah.
the grinders will use quite a bit. So very small diesel engine. Now, if you want to be even better for the environment, we have the option of an electric motor,
Okay.
right? So you run the electric motor to power the fan. And so the emissions that are coming off of the machine are very minimal because that air curtain is pushing those emissions down into the secondary burn chamber of the machine
Hmm.
where the emissions are burned off. So very minimal emissions are coming out of the box. But one of the things that I'm excited about in the future, it's coming out this January in 2024, is our biocharger. So we've been manufacturing the fireboxes for the past 25 years. Again, it's the money saver for customers. They're saving like usually $1,000 a day or more
Wow.
with our machines, running it to get rid of their wood waste. And so the firebox is a great piece of equipment. But 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we came out with a power generation firebox. So that's the firebox that simply uses the heat from the firebox to create electricity.
That See, that's cool. Marty was telling me about this, so like I really want you to go off onto this thing because it just sounds super cool.
It really is. I love the idea. We've sold, over the past 5 years, we've sold about four of the power generation units. Now it takes us about 8 months
Okay.
to build them,
Okay.
right? So it's a industry that's just starting to take off. But the thing is the wood waste where you can save thousands of dollars a day,
Hmm.
rather than transporting it to the landfill and paying $40 per ton
Yeah.
or $50 per ton, or depending where you are in the United States, $100 per ton, $80 per ton,
Wow.
where you can get rid of the wood waste in our machine for less than $1 per ton. That's where customers save the money.
Hmm.
We don't have an electrical problem right now in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So creating electricity and selling it back to the electric company, that's a tough sale there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you may be making a couple $100 a day selling electricity back to the power company, but you're making hundreds to thousands of dollars a day getting rid of the wood waste and saving the transfer costs to the landfills. But what's exciting about the new machine, the
Hmm.
biocharger, so now you're not selling the electricity back to the grid, into the power company. Now you are putting the electricity into a battery storage module. So the electricity now it's completely off grid, so you don't have to make a grid connection. So we call this island mode. And so in the island mode of our biocharger, you get rid of your wood waste, so you save a lot of money there
Hmm.
with much less emissions than grinding and hauling. And then you take that energy that you're creating from burning the wood waste, create that electricity. That electricity goes into the battery storage module. So Rolls-Royce is building the battery storage module for us. Volvo Construction is providing the connections.
Wow.
And so we already had the power generation unit. So it's one more piece to the power generation unit. But the battery storage module now makes it off grid. So there are no connections. It's island mode, so you can put it right on your piece of property and charge up the battery storage module. That battery storage module comes in 3 different sizes: a 400 kilowatt size, a 700 kilowatt size, and a 1 megawatt size. So depending on what you need to charge, whether it's an excavator, your trash trucks, your cars, your forklifts, that's what the battery storage module will do for you, and all for about the same price as that you can purchase a grinder.
So, I'm kind of thinking what you were talking about with the electric engine version. You were saying that that's not just like it's not plugged into the wall, and that's how it operates. Like, is it hooked up to a panel, and then the energy that produces gets fed back in, and that's like when you were talking about going back towards the grid and the energy company actually pays you, like in essence it works similar to like a solar panel. Is that what you were saying?
Great question. Yeah, so it gets a little confusing. So if you're just looking at the standard firebox by itself, right,
Yeah.
one piece,
Yeah.
and so the standard firebox is one piece that can have an electric motor,
Right.
and just the firebox by itself with the electric motor, you plug it into the wall.
Okay.
Right. So that's just the firebox with an electric motor.
Okay.
Now the power generation unit, that's going to be 3 pieces. So that will be the firebox,
Okay.
the heat recovery module that sits next to the firebox to take the heat off the top of the firebox,
Okay.
and a cooling module. And the cooling module cools the working fluid. So how the power generation unit works is that you have your firebox, the heat recovery module sits next to the firebox. It'll take the heat off the top of the firebox. It'll heat up a working fluid. Once that working fluid is heated up, it expands. Once it expands, it turns the screws inside of the ORC. ORC is the organic Rankine cycle system. ORC is like in every biomass facility across the nation, they mostly run an ORC type of electricity that they're creating.
Gotcha.
And so then the working fluid then goes into the cooling tower, where the working fluid is cooled off and then reintroduced back into the system. So a completely automated system, completely enclosed system. So the end users just have to load the firebox with wood waste. Everything else is automatic.
So, and I want to kind of go back to when you were talking about like going on the grid option. Are you saying that only applies to this specific type of firebox, like the one that like has the actual energy? I can't. It's getting away from me right now. What you were literally just talking about,
yes,
you know,
power generation firebox.
So there's the option of having it go into a battery or having it go back through the grid, and then like that is what can, I guess, go back towards the energy company. Is that what you were saying? Or
Correct.
like this? Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
So there's
so it's just 2 different names. So we have a PGF 100. So
Okay.
it produces 100 kilowatts per hour.
Right.
And then we have the biocharger. So the PGF 100, that's just like its solar panels. That's like it's set up on a net metering system. So
Gotcha.
the electricity has to go somewhere. So it goes into the grid. So if the customer has an electric bill or they're running electricity, that electricity will be used from the PGF 100.
Gotcha.
The excess electricity goes back into the grid.
Okay.
So, if a customer has electricity in that little the dial's going around really fast, using a lot of electricity, well, now the dial's going to slow down because the power generation firebox, the PGF 100, is going to power that facility because it's on the same transformer.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we call that on grid. It's the PGF 100.
Okay.
And then the new product that's coming out in January of 2024, that's the biocharger.
Okay.
And so the biocharger is 4 pieces. So the standard PGF 100 is 3 pieces: the firebox, the heat recovery module, the cooling module. The biocharger is 1 more piece, battery storage module. And that battery storage module makes it island mode, so it's not connected to the grid anymore.
Okay. Gotcha. That's interesting. Now, what is the benefit to the battery? Like why would somebody want to choose the battery option versus, having it go back onto the grid?
Kyle, that is a great question, and you know what? I think right now where I see this is not so much in the pallet industry, but it can get there because I see in the pallet industry they run a lot of
Yeah, that's
forklifts, so I can see it working there.
right.
But where it's in demand, I've said this machine, I've said the idea of the machine to a few different facilities,
Hmm.
and they've already put it in their budget to purchase the biocharger.
Well, that's
And the
cool.
reason is this. So if
Yeah.
you look in all the magazines and if you look into the what you see on TV, if you look into what the president's talking about, we're going to electric vehicles, electric trucks, electric this. You
Hmm.
go to California, and California is making a regulation that by 2025 you won't be allowed to use any type of combustible engines 35 horsepower or less. New York is adopting this as well. 35 horsepower or less, no combustible engines, all electric. Well, you start hearing about, okay, well, we just ordered, you hear these municipalities, you hear customers buying fleets of cars, and now they have these cars and they're trying to figure out, oh, we're just going to plug them into our building, but they're not set up, and the electric companies are not set up to power the electric vehicles. So I keep on hearing these stories again and again and again. And when it comes down to it, I was again talking to a municipality in South Carolina, and same thing. They have electric bobcats and skid steers, electric equipment to run around to do what public works do, and in the municipalities all across the United States, and they don't have a way to power their electric vehicles. So when they heard that, okay, well, we have tons of wood waste that everybody's putting at the curb, and we're
Hmm.
bringing back to our transfer station where we're just trying to get rid of it in the least expensive way possible, the firebox, which is already being used.
Right.
And now they want to say, okay, well, let's create electricity. We'll put the electricity in the battery. And now we're going to charge our electric trash trucks, our electric cars, our electric vehicles, bobcat skid steers. So
That,
they're quite excited about that. So I see, number one, people that are using electric vehicles, trash trucks, so municipalities mostly. So I
mhm.
see a big market for that. But then you talk about these states that, like in California, that are getting rid of combustible engines. So now, California, you heard about many wildfires out there over the past few years.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of wildfire cleanup in the middle of the mountains. They're doing a lot of wildfire cleanup around the towns. And so with that, they're using smaller little engines. So when now they switch over to electric, they're doing wildfire mitigation. They're doing forest thinning out there, and they're using machines that are able to get the material out of the woods. And now they have to go to battery powered. So now they're in the middle of the mountains with battery powered equipment. How do you recharge that equipment in the middle of the mountains?
Oh, wow. That's okay. Well, there you go.
Yes, yes. So now you have a portable unit. All of our machines are portable. You can
Gotcha.
take it to where you want to go. Many issues throughout the United States with our biomass facilities. I mean, I seem to be talking to customers in every state, and the biomass facilities are shutting down. Currently, the federal government funds the biomass facilities. They cost hundreds of millions to open and run and keep them going. And the issue with the biomass facilities is that they burn chips to create the heat to
Hmm.
create electricity. Right. So the biomass facility, you'll go and grind the chips that, let's say, right around $15 a ton, and then they usually have to grind them again to clean the chips because you need to burn clean chips. So that's
Okay.
about another $15 a ton. Then they take those chips and they haul them 50 miles, 30 miles, 100 miles to the biomass facility. And they spend that money. Then the biomass facility buys the chips. Then they use a supplemental fuel, a gas, a propane. They have the true incinerator. And so now they're going to burn the chips in their boiler or in their incinerator to create that heat to create electricity. So it's a very, very, very expensive process, and it's
Yeah.
a permanent foundation that they just built. So as you clear out all the wood waste around that within a 30-mile radius, a lot of the government facilities can't go and take the wood waste to those locations anymore. So our machine simply portable and take it into the woods, and you're able to get rid of your wood waste. Everything is electric, so you're able to burn inside of the air curtain burner. It has an electric motor. You're creating electricity. The electricity is going into the battery pack where you can recharge all your electric equipment. I know we're kind of getting a little off track from pallet
No,
industry.
I still think it's relevant. I mean, in a way, I mean, and it's. I wanted to hear that. I was honestly excited for that, and just to hear the relevance of the product and where it's applicable. So I think that, if there's more that you wanted to say on it, feel free. But no, I mean, because my mind immediately went to, like you were saying, like forklifts. I felt like that was probably, and then there's machinery at a lot of these pallet locations anyway. I mean, like, maybe down the line somebody has to create more electronic oriented equipment, because a lot of the um equipment runs off of like gasoline, so like that's kind of one thing to consider. But I don't know, maybe there's a market for you guys there, but is it like a plug-in thing, or is it like, a drop-in battery that you would put into the actual piece of machinery?
It's a drop-in battery, but then we build a skid around it. So all of our fireboxes are designed to be drug around. So
Okay.
when they do these portable land clearing, or they're out there in the woods, or where our machines started 25 years ago were military bases and
Mm,
pipeline clearing. So it was areas
mm,
where they were trying to reduce the smoke, where they were, grinding and hauling was too expensive or wasn't an option because they didn't have a place to haul the chips. And so then they were open burning. But then the open burning created too much smoke, so they weren't allowed to open burn. Therefore, they found our machines to utilize to get rid of the wood waste in a clean way possible, in the cleanest way possible.
mm.
So that's kind of where the machine started, but they've kind of adapted themselves through the years to the transfer stations, to the pallet companies, to the sawmills, to anybody that is just trying to get rid of wood waste in the least expensive way possible.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense, and it's crazy. It's cool to hear how it's evolved. So it originally started with like clearing space for military bases, you were saying.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes. And the U.S. Forest Service right now, we have a partnership. We have a CRADA agreement with them, and it's really the reason that they're utilizing our machines is safety, right? So
It's gonna
if
be
you have an open
yeah.
burn pile, I mean, you saw a lot of these fires all over the United States, Canada, right
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
great way to talk about Canada. These most of the fires are coming out. They're starting. They talk about lightning strikes, but people are open burning on a daily basis, and
Hmm.
so the open burn. The problem with that is that they open burn a pile. I mean, this was in British Columbia. This was 2 years ago, or a couple of years ago, but it was a farm, an ag farm, and they were open burning a pile. Well, with the open burn, and you have winds that blow through, 20-mile-per-hour winds that blow through, well, it's an open pile, so it's just going to blow those embers. And
Yeah.
so the ember went across the road, it was over a field, across the road, and burnt the house down across the street. Right, so that's just a house, and luckily nobody was hurt. But what's happening now is that they're starting these open burn piles that are not contained, and winds are coming through. A couple embers get out, and then you can't stop the fire in time, and then you have the large forest fires. So open burn is it's tough because it's not contained. With our fireboxes, it is contained.
So
And
I was gonna, and I hate to cut you off. I'm
so,
curious, like, what if you wanted to stop the fire? Like, is there a shut off? Is there a top? Like, how would you stop that?
excellent. Yeah. So with our machines, with let's say you're burning pallets, let's say you wanted to leave at the end of the day. Okay.
Yeah. There
So
you go.
yeah. So what you're going to do is if you load. So let's say you're leaving at 5 o'clock. Four
Hmm.
o'clock is the last time you load the machine. The air curtain stays on, and you're burning. And in about 30 minutes, everything inside of the box is going to burn down to ash and embers. And so you'll have pretty much, again, that 99% with burning pallets. You
Hmm.
won't have really anything left. And then, so at the end of the day, now everything is contained in the box. You have walls that are 7 feet tall. The little ash and embers are at the bottom of the box. And at 5 o'clock, you turn off the fan and leave for the end of the day.
So it's really, like you're saying, it's self-contained. It's not as much like you're not gonna leave it overnight on, but you just by turning it off, like that is sufficient enough. to
Correct.
where there's not enough heat coming off of it. There's no way that like let now here's a question. It goes outside, right? Like this wouldn't be something that you could have indoors, correct?
Correct. 99.9% of our machines are outside.
Okay. Yeah, like,
Yes.
maybe dumb question, but there's incinerators inside, I feel like, so potentially um something I was thinking about. But yeah, I feel like you've answered so many of the questions too. Is there things that, sorry, I feel like I cut you off in the middle
Yeah,
of what you
no,
were
so,
saying too.
so safety side. So you really don't need,
Yeah.
when it comes to our machines, you don't need anything else besides running the firebox down, let everything burn down by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're burning is depending on when you stop loading, right? So if you're burning big trees,
Right.
it's going to be about 2 hours before you're ready to leave at the end of the day
Okay.
because you have a 2 foot tree diameter tree that you're burning inside of the firebox. But you'll let it burn down at the end of the day, and then you'll turn it off. We do also manufacture an ember screen, right? So you can put an
Okay.
ember screen over top of the firebox at the end of the day. It's not needed because again, you have the 7 foot walls, 6 foot walls, 8 foot walls that are there to cover, help cover from the wind. So it's a contained fire, contained embers at the end of the day.
So I'm thinking like in the sense of uh if I were a pallet business owner, like I mean, and I know that you had said like it kind of sells itself, a lot of the times it's people reaching out to you guys to kind of ask about these things, but do you how do you like have that conversation with them to show the value? Like if somebody's like, well, I just burn the wood, or I just have this relationship with this recycler that I've been working with, is it the cost savings that you really try to focus on in those conversations? Like what would be how do you navigate that is what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Sure. What it is quite often cost, right? So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
talking to this manufacturing plant just the other day,
Hmm.
and they spend $30,000 a month disposing of their pallets.
Wow.
Yeah,
30,000?
$30,000 a month
Okay.
disposing of their pallets. Right. So you think about just smaller companies. This is a large manufacturing plant, but so you have they're disposing of their pallets because the chip market's already taken care of that industry, right? So they can't
Mm,
sell the chips. They
gotcha.
can't sell the pallets to somebody. So it's disposing. It's taking them to a landfill. And now that landfill is going to create methane and then all the emissions from the trucks and the tractors, and then maybe they grind them at the landfill and then they try to throw the chips around, and they throw the chips in the landfill, and that wood waste is going to go and create more methane coming out, which is horrible for the environment. That whole process of just trying to get rid of wood waste rather than just getting rid of it on site in our machine. And that's what it comes down to, is that rather than spending the $30,000 a month to get rid of your wood waste, this company can purchase our machine, which our fireboxes, the price range is anywhere from 77,000 to 208,000. So
Okay.
the smallest one that burns 1 ton an hour, one
Mhm.
ton of wood waste an hour, that's a $77,000 piece of equipment. The largest firebox that burns 13 tons an hour, that machine is going to burn about 13 tons an hour, right? That's going to be a $208,000 piece of equipment.
Okay.
So when it comes down to the operational costs, what they'll do is they'll compare what are we paying right now to get rid of our wood waste compared to if we bought this machine, what is our ROI to pay off the machine, and what's
Yeah.
our daily operational cost to run the machine. So we hear quite often, okay, well, we're going to grind and haul. So there's an HOA community right down the street from us here where we manufacture, and they spend $50,000 to grind and haul their vegetation. So they purchased a machine that was about $100,000.
Hmm.
They've been running that machine for the past 9 years now, 8 to 9 years,
Wow.
and it's still all original. It's a 116E. It's an electric motor, and they've been running it for 9 years, all original.
Wow.
No maintenance, And
Really?
you're able to run it on a daily basis with no maintenance. And that's
That's
another large
good.
benefit.
Yeah, I as you were kind of saying that too, like I was gonna say, like, what is the time frame in which you can use these things? Is it an everyday thing? Like, how much maintenance does, like, even the engine? Well, you're saying it's electric too, like the diesel engine. Does that change the time frame at all, or?
So no, I mean, California parks, they've been running their fireboxes for the past 20 plus years. About a year ago, they put on a brand new Tier 4 final engine. So they
Okay.
had to upgrade the California Air Resources Board CARB, made them upgrade from a Tier 3 to a Tier 4 engine. So they put a $30,000 engine on
Wow.
a 20-year-old firebox, right? So then I just received a call too, just last week from the Department of Illinois, and so or the Department of Transportation for Illinois. I'm sorry, and so the Department of Transportation for Illinois, they've been running our firebox for, I think it's 21 or 22 years old. The
Wow.
firebox, and they called us up about, hey, this machine's pretty beat up. It needs some repairs, so they're looking at repairing the machine or possibly buying a new one. But all
Okay.
original parts in that machine. And
Wow.
so the Department of Transportation, they do emergency management cleanup. So when a tornado hits or a storm hits and the trees are down in the middle of the road and they're trying to figure out exactly how to clean up the area, they take the firebox out there and they clean up the area.
Gotcha.
So some of these stories, I mean, we've been manufacturing machines for 25 years. So
Yeah.
hearing that these machines are still out there on the original panels, the original equipment of the firebox is exciting. But with pallets, that is actually the harshest material for our machine.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
So it's the heat of the pallets. When you burn it inside of the box itself. So, like a prime example, I have another customer that they've been running a 116E,
Okay.
and they're up in Kentucky or Tennessee up there, and they've been burning pallets and reels for the past 16 years.
Okay.
And they called me up a few months ago, and they said, "Hey, our machine's pretty beat up, and we're going to put it in our budget to purchase a new machine this year." So
Nice.
a 16-year run out of a 116E with an electric, which means the electric motor.
That's still a long time though, like, it's still, they clearly stand up to the amount of and again, like, use, like, this is every single day, right, that they're
Yes.
using this piece of
Yep.
machinery.
Well, you know what? Sometimes customers, yes, it's usually on a daily basis, but sometimes customers are burning one day a week, right? So,
Okay.
like I have this city in North Carolina, they're burning every Friday, so they burn one day a week.
Okay.
I have some cities that'll burn 1 week out of the month, and then we have some customers that are burning two fireboxes. So one person can
Wow.
load up to three fireboxes.
Okay.
So it just depends on how much waste that they're looking to get rid of.
That's crazy. That's crazy just to think about, like, the piece of machinery lasting as long as it has. The stories that you have is, I mean, you guys have been around for 25 years. So the fact that, your original equipment is still out there, still operating properly, is really cool to hear. And I think that, obviously this is the Pallet Plug podcast and it's meant to be more pallet related. I think that just overall as a whole company and product, it's really interesting. And I feel like you've emphasized the relevancy to this industry as well, where, I mean, like you were saying, like, as far as the use cases go, like, it's saving you on spending with recycling or mulching or whatever you're doing with pallets, like whatever other option that you have of disposing of the waste, like, this seems like it still provides a better solution. It's a cleaner solution. Um, and just overall, I feel like, man, I'm just trying to think of the other topics that we had covered as well. I'm just really, like, I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed learning about this thing. Is
Let's talk
there?
negative.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I was gonna say it's funny because I was like, share
Positive.
some
Let's
good
go on.
stories. Yeah, that's
Yes,
fair.
these are
Yeah,
all these are all fun stories. I mean, because I hear them all the time. But
yeah,
let's start with the negatives with it.
yeah, yeah.
And it really comes down to, there are federal guidelines. You are burning. You do need to be away from certain people.
Okay.
So depending on certain people, certain houses, you want to make sure it's safe. Safety is always the number one priority. When people call in first and they start talking to us, the first thing that I always do: name, telephone number, email, and address. What physical address are you looking to where are you looking to place this machine?
Okay.
And then I pull it up on Google Maps and I see exactly where it is. So here's the negative. You can't put it right in the middle of the city, right? So
Makes
the
sense.
federal guidelines are 300 feet from any occupied dwelling, not including your own.
Okay.
Those are the federal guidelines where you can place our firebox. So the firebox can sit here, and then 300 feet away from your neighbors, you have to be. Now
Okay.
that the states can be more restrictive. So there are certain states that'll be 500. There'll be certain states that'll be, 1,000 feet. So you get into those certain areas. So the pallet companies that many times are right in the middle of the city,
Mm.
and they don't have that land. So most of our customers that have our fireboxes, they need a minimum of 7 acres of property.
Okay.
So a
Okay.
minimum of 7 acres. And the reason for that, it gives you that 300 foot that you need from any other occupied dwelling, not including your own. But if you get into certain states where it's 1,000 feet,
Mm.
then you have to be even further away, which means that you need a larger piece of property. And many pallet companies or many pallet facilities don't have that property. But if you have property and you have the room to put an air curtain burner on, then yes, it's definitely going to save you money rather than grinding and hauling.
Gotcha.
And then also too, it's going to give you that peace of mind where many states talk to many pallet companies where they are just open burning in the back, and they
Yeah.
leave at the end of the day, and the pit's still burning and the embers are still out there, and it can catch fire overnight while nobody's there. So where
Right.
our machine is a contained way to burn.
That's a good point. I think that something I never really thought about too is just like the location aspect of it, and how it's like I was saying too earlier. It's like you can't put it inside, so to consider your surrounding area. But the fact that you guys do that, you're not gonna like sell somebody a machine and then be like, oh, you can't use it. Like, too
Correct.
bad. You're stuck with it now.
Yes,
So
that goes back to what we do is we don't try to sell. We simply just educate.
yeah,
And if the firebox makes sense at the end of our conversation, then we're not selling the customers saying, okay, well, how do I get this machine in my property?
yeah,
And we simply walk them through the process of what's best in each and every state. Here we have an air quality engineer in house. We have mechanical engineering here in house. So we're here to assist our customers all over the United States and all over the world. And getting back to, I think we mentioned briefly, tested by EPA here in the
hmm
United States, tested by EPA in Australia, tested by Environment Canada,
wow.
tested by the U.S. Forest Service, state tests, forestry tests, tested by universities. So multiple tests over the past 25 years.
For the environmental impact of. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your job is fairly easy. I feel like
Kyle, don't tell anybody that.
no, I know. Not to take away from what you're doing, but no, I mean it's pretty cool. I feel like hearing about this thing, it's just like you can I'm sure that cost has to be like the biggest objection that you come across. But right, or is there other ones? Like, I didn't want to make an assumption there, but what are like the most common objections, and specifically to like the pallet industry? Like what have you found when pursuing this avenue, at this industry, that you like? What are the common objections that you run into? Is it? I mean, we kind of talked about it.
Safety.
Location, safety.
It's
Yeah.
Safety is number one. I mean, a sawmill, pallet companies, these facilities, especially sawmills, they usually have 30 feet of chips and embers just kind of were just sitting there. But safety number one. I think that's probably what's always brought up is they're worried about embers flying out of the machine or embers being carried, and not saying that could not happen, right?
hmm
So embers can get out of the machine, and ember could fall on the ground. So with that, that's why there's safety when you burn with the firebox. You have a 50-foot radius on the opposite side of the manifold of the box. So that's safety is always number one. But again, a lot of these pallet companies are just open burning out back to
Yeah.
where our machine is much safer than that. And usually when you have the 7 acres of property, that is going to give you the opportunity to put the firebox on your piece of property in a safe area where you're not going to have that combustible material right next to the firebox. I'll never forget a story, and not going to name any names here, but their entire yard was filled up with pallets. And so there were pallets all over the yard, and the customer was building pallets and selling pallets. And so the customer calls me up and he wants a machine. He purchased the S330 firebox, our
Okay.
largest firebox. So
Oh,
when
wow.
it was delivered to the site, again, we look on Google Maps, great site, a lot of land. He didn't have any houses around him, so he
Yeah.
was all by himself. And when the firebox was delivered to the site, which you couldn't see on Google Maps, the entire site was filled with pallets, 10 feet high. And there was just pallets all over, broken pallets all over the yard. And
Jeez.
so it was delivered, and our trainer goes out there, and our trainer looks, and there's pallets within 5 feet of the firebox.
Oh, wow.
And basically we had to move some of the pallets away so we can start burning. But the point of this story was, yes, this customer was engulfed in pallets, couldn't get rid of them. It was going to cost too much to grind and haul. So he purchased our machine. He cleaned up his entire yard. So cleaned up all the pallets with the S330 firebox. That's the machine that burns around 12, 13 tons an hour.
Hmm.
Cleaned up his yard. And then because he cleaned up his yard, in the next few months, he was able to pick up 4 new clients. And the new
Wow.
clients he was able to pick up is because he was able to bring back their broken scrap where he had no room to take it before.
I
He was
see.
able to clean up his yard and gain new clients because he had a way to get rid of all the scrap wood now.
See, that like it shows the value in itself that it's like this thing can truly help out people in a way that you don't really think about. And I feel like you were saying like a lot of the open burn is a lot of the option, which like in itself, like I've talked to people who are not proud of it, like they do it because they're like, I don't know what else to do, or it's like they're sneaking it into some dumpster that they shouldn't be, which is like that's not the larger companies, it's the
Sure.
guy in his backyard or
Sure.
something. But regardless, it's still like there's still an application for this piece of machinery, and yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today and just explain what this is, how it applies to the industry, how it can benefit people. I mean, we're coming up on an hour. Is there any other maybe some good stories or positive stories that are related to the pallet industry, or even if it's not, like I still always like hearing a good story. So feel free to share, and then I think we could kind of cap it off at that.
Well, other stories, I mean, you can only imagine. I mean, some of these stories that I've heard over the past 25 years here with our machines all over the world. Yes, we can go on. That would probably be the next podcast.
Yeah.
But for the pallet companies themselves, we just hear success stories and how customers are so happy because they're saving money, right? So
Yeah.
they're doing something that's helping out the environment, using a good piece of equipment to get rid of the wood waste. And then also they're able to put more money back into their pockets, which means hire more employees, expand their business. And so this is getting these success stories from the clients out there that are currently burning and currently utilizing our machines. That is going to be the biggest success stories that I see. And it's the same thing all over again. Take the pallets, throw it in the firebox. So it's
Yeah.
nothing exciting really with the story, but it's just customers all over the United States. I mean, I think the next podcast, maybe let's go live to a customer that has a firebox.
That would be cool. Yeah. If you do that, yeah, definitely take the time to like record that. I mean, I'd love to share it and post it for you guys. Like obviously it's your own material to use, but yeah, I think that would be exciting to just kind of hear that insight, hear somebody who's actively using it. It would be really interesting. Um but yeah, so I mean, I want to thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate us, tell us all about this thing, show us how it's relevant to the pallet industry, teach people on how they can save themselves some money, clean up their yard more easily, have this thing that's more efficient, and then also the energy aspect of it too. That's the really cool part. I think that hearing more about that, or you guys are releasing it January 2024, you were saying?
February of 2024. We're about getting ready to ship it out to California, which is going to
Okay.
be our demonstration site.
Okay.
And so that's going to be exciting. January of 2024 it'll be open to see it for customers.
Nice. Awesome. That's exciting. So yeah, I
Wow.
really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you. What were you gonna say? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, this was fun. I just want to thank you for having me
Yeah.
to talk about our machines, the air curtain burners, Air Burners Incorporated. So you can find more information on our machines at airburners.com. So AIRBURNERS.com. And so you can contact us, or our website is very informative. So please take a
Yeah.
look if you have any future questions. But again, thank you so much for having us on here and discussing the pallet industry.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta plug your own company too. So I'll include links in the description for anybody who's interested in checking out their website. I'll put your LinkedIn in there as well so people can find you, Marty as well, so people can reach out to him through that.
Great.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you again for coming on, and for everybody who's listening, I say it every single time. I always wait till the end to say if you're listening. I'd ask that you subscribe if you're on YouTube, or follow along if you're on Spotify, whatever platform. And it really helps out, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.